My name is Natalie. I am 29 years old. I live in Columbus, Ohio. And I am telling this story because I have spent the last 14 months trying to make sense of what happened to me. And honestly, writing it down is the only thing that has helped. I need you to understand something before I start. I am not a dramatic person. I am not someone who creates chaos or thrives on conflict. I work as a dental hygienist. I go to the farmer's market on Saturdays. I have a small apartment with 2 succulents on the windowsill that I have somehow kept alive for 3 years. I am, by every measure, a boring and stable person. I say this so you understand that what happened to me was not the result of me being careless or naive. I was careful, and it still happened anyway. Brooke and I met in 7th grade. She sat behind me in homeroom and told me she liked my backpack on one of those colorful ones from Jamesburg that everyone had in 2005. I said she could borrow it if she wanted. She laughed and said that was the weirdest thing anyone had ever said to her. We were inseparable after that. Brooke is the kind of person who makes everything feel like an event. She is loud in the best way, tall, curly red hair. The kind of freckle someone flicked a paintbrush at her face. She is funny in a way that makes feel like you are in on the joke instead of the butt of it. Growing up, I was the quiet one and she was the loud one, and we fit together perfectly. She was my person. That is the only way I know how to say it. Whatever happened to me? The first call I made was to Brooke. We went to different colleges. She went to Ohio State. I went to a smaller school in Kentucky, but we talked every day. We drove to see each other on weekends. We were in each other's dorms when we went through our first breakups. We ugly cried together over boys who were not worth a single tear between them. When I moved back to Columbus and Twinfay, Brooke was already there. We found apartments in the same neighborhood. We had the same Tuesday night routine, Thai food, bad reality TV. 1 glass of wine each because we both had work the next morning. It was a good life, a comfortable, warm, honest life. Then I met Daniel. I met him at a work event. He was not even someone I was supposed to talk to. He was there with a patient from the dental office where I worked. A friend of a friend situation. He was standing near the fin table, looking slightly uncomfortable, and eating one of those tiny crab cakes like he had not eaten all day. I said, "They are not as good as they look." He said, "Nothing ever is." We talked for 2 hours. Daniel is 31. He is a mechanical engineer. He is not the kind of man who turns heads when he walks into a room is medium height. Dark hair that is always slightly long. Glasses he never got around to replacing, even though one arm is held on by a rubber band. He is steady, he is careful, he thinks before he speaks. Which sounds like a small thing until you have dated enough people who never do. He is also one of the funniest people I have ever met in a completely dry, understated way that sneaks up on you. We dated for 2 years before he proposed. We were in his kitchen on a Sunday morning, and he was making eggs, and he had been acting weird for a week, and I thought he was going to tell me something bad. Instead, he turned around and said, "I want to marry you." I have known it, I figured. I should probably say it out loud. The ring was in the pocket of the apron he was wearing. I laughed so hard I cried. I said yes before he even got down on one knee, and he said, "You are supposed to let me fish." I said, "You waited long enough." Brooke was the first person I called. She screamed so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. She was at my apartment within 40 minutes with champagne and this big ridiculous bow that she stuck on my head like I was a gift. She said she knew Daniel was the one from the first time she met him. She said she could tell by the way he looked at me. She cried a little, which was unusual for Brooke. She did not cry often. She threw me an engagement party 3 weeks later. She planned the whole thing herself. Decorations, food, guest list. She gave this toast about her friendship that made half the room reach for napkins. She talked about the backpack in 7th grade. She said she had never had a friend like me and that she was so happy I was going to be happy. I named her my maid of honor before she even asked. Looking back now, I think about that toast a lot. I think about how good she was at saying the right thing. How effortless she made it look. How much I believed every single word. She had already been texting Daniel for a month by then. I did not know that yet. I did not know a lot of things yet, but I am going to tell you all of them. Wedding planning was, in the beginning, genuinely fun. She had opinions about everything in the best way possible. She had a Pinterest board she had been building for years, not for her own wedding. She said, but just because she loved weddings. She knew exactly which venues had the best lighting, which caterers did not cut corners on portions, on which florists would actually deliver on time. I let her run with it because I trusted her completely, and because, honestly, I find event planning exhausting. We picked a venue in April, a restored barn about 40 minutes outside Columbus. The kind of place with Edison bum lights strung across the ceiling and big doors that opened to a field. It held about 120 people. It was perfect. Daniel had seen the photos and said, "Book it. It looks like you." I asked him what that meant. He said, "Warm. And a little bit wide." I told him that was the nicest thing he had ever said about a building. The date was set for the following September, 14 months away. Plenty of time. Brooke and I started meeting every other Saturday to work through the details. Dress shopping, cake tasting, seating charts, music. She had spreadsheets. Actual color-coded spreadsheets. I joked that she was better at planning my wedding than I was. She laughed and said, "Of course I am. This is too important to leave to you." It was a joke. I took it as a joke. Daniel liked Brooke. They got along easily. The way some people jesting. He thought she was hilarious. She would come over for dinner sometimes, and the three of us would sit around the table for hours, talking and laughing of us, looked at the clock and realized it was midnight. It felt normal. It felt like the kind of life people build in movies. The good kind where everyone loves each other and it works out in the end. The first sign I noticed, and I want to be honest, I did not recognize it as a sign at the time, was in January. About 8 months before the wedding, we were at a cake tasting. The bakery had set up 6 different samples, and Brooke and I were going through them while Daniel was at work. She got a text that made her smile. I asked who it was. She said it was just a guy she had been talking to. She did not look up from her for 10 seconds, which was a long time. I did not push it. The second sign was in March. Daniel came home from a work happy hour, quieter than usual. I asked if everything was okay. He said yes, just tired. But he was not tired in the way people when they are physically exhausted. He was tired in the way people are when they are carrying something and do not know where to put it down. I asked again the next morning. He said everything was fine. He kissed me on the forehead, went to make coffee. I believed him. I want to say that clearly. I am not the kind of person who goes through phones or interrogates their partner. I believed him because he had never given me a reason not to. The third sign was in May. Brooke and I were at the Fending for a walkthrough with the coordinator. She kept checking her phone. Not obsessively, but enough that the coordinator asked twice if everything was all right. Brooke apologized and said she was dealing with something personal. After the walkthrough, I asked her what was going on. She said she had met someone, and it was complicated. I asked if she wanted to talk about it. She said no, not yet. She said she would tell me when it made sense. I did not push. That was my mistake. Or one of them. In June, my dress came in. I went to the boutique with mine and then 2 other bridesmaids. A woman from my office named Rachel and my cousin Danny, who had driven in from Pittsburgh. We had champagne in those tiny plastic flutes. I stood on the lawn. I stood on the mirrors and looked at myself in the dress, and I fell. For a moment, completely write down everything. Like all of it was exactly what it was supposed to be. Brooke was not there. She had texted that morning saying was sorry that something came up, that she would make it up to me. I told her it was okay. My mom gave me a look. I told my mom it was okay. In August, about 6 weeks before the wedding, Daniel and I had only real argument during our entire engagement. I do not even remember how it started. Something small. A disagreement about the seating chart. About whether his college friends shouldn't be at the same table as my work friends. It escalated faster than I expected. He said something about not feeling heard. I said something about doing everything myself. It was the kind of argument that is not really about the thing you are arguing about. We made up by the next morning. He brought me coffee and said he was sorry. I said I was sorry too. He said he was just stressed and that he loved me. I said I loved him too. We were fine. Or we were what I thought was fine. Which is not exactly the same thing. The week before the wedding, Brooke became impossible to each. She responded to texts hours late. She missed our final planning call. I left her a voicemail that I tried to make sound casual and not panicked, saying I just needed to define things, that I hoped everything was okay. She texted back 2 hours later, "How good. I'll be there. Don't worry. I worried." I am always the one who worries, but I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself Brooke was my person. I told myself the dress was perfect and the venue was beautiful and Daniel was waiting for me at the end of an aisle. I told myself everything was going to be fine. The morning of my wedding, I woke up at 5:15 without an alarm. My mom was already awake in the hotel room we were sharing. She had made window machine on the dresser, and she was sitting in the chair by the window, looking out at the parking lot like it was the most peaceful thing she had ever seen. I sat next to her, and we did not say anything for a few minutes. She reached over and took my hand. That was enough. The bridal seat at the venue opened at 8. My mom and I drove over with Rachel and my cousin Danny. There were mimosas and a fruit platter and a woman named Alexis who was doing hair and makeup and who had the kind of calm, collected energy that sent physical gift on a day like that. I sat in the chair and let her work and tried to breathe. Brooke was supposed to be there at 8. By 8:45, she had not arrived. I texted her, no response. I called her, straight to voicemail. Rachel said maybe she was on her way. Danny said maybe her phone died. My mom said nothing, which was the response I trusted most. By 9:30, my hair was done and my makeup was done and I was in my dress and Brooke still was not there. My maid of honor was not there 2 hours before my ceremony. I called her again. Voicemail again. I sent her a text that said, Brooke, please call me. I'm getting worried. The ceremony was at 12. At 10:15, my phone rang. It was a number I did not recognize. I answered. It was a woman named Sarah. She said she was Daniel's counselor and she was sorry to call. That she had debated calling for weeks. That she had almost talked herself out of it a dozen times. But she felt like I had to know. She said it in one long sentence, like she was afraid of losing her nerve. She said she had seen Daniel and Brooke together, not once, many times. She said they had been meeting at a bar near his office since at least February. She said she had seen the way they looked at each other, and she knew what she was looking at. She said she was sorry. I stood in the middle of the bridal suite, holding my phone. My mom was watching me. Rachel was watching me. The hairdresser was pretending to rearrange her supplies. I thanked Sarah and hung up. I sat down in the chair in my wedding dress in the venue where 112 people were going to arrive in less than 2 hours. And I just sat. My mom came over and crouched down in front of me. She said, "What happened?" I told her. Her face went through 4 or 5 things very quickly, and then settled into something calm and deliberate. She stood up, straightened her dress, and said, "Tell me what you want to do." I called Daniel. He answered on the second ring, which was almost worse somehow. He sounded normal. He said, "Hey." Everything okay, like he did not know. Like his voice had not been in my ear for 2 years, telling me he loved me, and it was all completely fine. I told him I had gotten a call. There was silence on his end. Not the kind of silence that means confusion, the kind that means caught. He said, "Net." I said, "Don't." He said her name once, just said it, like it explained everything. "Brooke, One word and it explained everything, and it explained nothing at all. I asked him how long. He said since January, 5 months of my engagement. He said he was sorry. He said it had happened fast, and he did not know how to stop it, and he was going to tell me. He kept telling himself he was going to tell me. I asked him if he was in love with her. He was quiet for too long. I hung up. I did not cry. Not yet. I think my body understood that if I started crying in that moment, I would not be able to stop, and there were still things that needed to happen. I asked Danny to call the venue coordinator. I asked Rachel to start calling guests. I asked my mom to get me a glass of water and sit next to me and not say anything. She did all of those things without a word, the coordinator. A woman named Felicia, who had been doing this for 15 years and clearly had a plan for every possible scenario, including this one, handled everything with a can I still think about. She got on the phone. She managed the vendors. She talked to the caterer. She moved through the space quietly and efficiently, and at one point she put her hand on my shoulder and said, "You are handling this with more dignity than most people handle a cancelled hair appointment." I almost laughed. We sent the guests home. Some of them had already arrived at the venue. There were 100 people who dressed up and drove out to a barn 40 minutes outside Columbus for a wedding that did not happen. And I still think of every single one of them. My dad sat in the parking lot for 20 minutes before he could drive home. My grandmother cried. My work friends, the ones who had come from 2 hours away, just sat in their cars for a while like they did not know what to do with themselves. I stayed in the bridal seat until the venue was empty. Then I took off my dress, folded it into the garment bag, and put on the jeans and sweatshirt I had driven over in. My mom drove me back to the hotel. We ordered room service. She watched game shows. I stared at the ceiling. That night, I got a text from a number I did not recognize. It said, "I know you hate me. I know I deserve that. But I need you to know it was never about hurting you. I know that doesn't help. I'm sorry, Nat. I'm so sorry. It was Brooke." She had texted from Anne because she knew I had blocked her. I did not respond. The thing about a public catastrophe is that everyone knows. I did not have to explain to anyone what had happened. By Sunday morning, my entire extended social circle knew. My phone had 340 notifications, which I know because I counted them before I turned it off for 4 days. When I turned it back on, there was a text from my cousin Danny. It said, "Call me when you can. I need to tell you something." I called her. She answered immediately, like she had been waiting, which she probably had. Danny told me that on the morning of my wedding, flickering on, while I was sitting in the bridal seat waiting for Brooke to show up. Brooke and Daniel had driven to a courthouse 2 counties over. They had gotten a marriage license the week before. They had 2 witnesses, people none of us knew, friends of Daniel's from before Columbus. They were married 47 in the morning while I was sitting in a barn in my wedding dress calling Brooke's phone and getting voicemail. They were married the same day, the same morning. I had to ask Danny to repeat it. She repeated it. I asked her how she knew. She said Rachel had found out from Sarah, Daniel's coworker, who had apparently known about the courthouse plan and had been wrestling with whether to say more when she called me. She had not. Maybe she thought when she had already said was enough. It was not enough. I sat with that information for a long time. I think the reason it hit differently than everything else was not the betrayal itself, but the planning. A marriage license takes time. You have to apply. You have to wait. While Brooke was sitting at my kitchen table with her color-coded spreadsheets, while she was toasting me with champagne in those plastic flutes, while she was standing in the venue on the walkthrough asking the coordinator about contingency lighting plans. She had already decided. She had already chosen. She was already building something else entirely with my fiancé, and she was doing it while holding my hand. That kind of deception takes a specific kind of person. I had been trying to figure out since then which kind she was. The kind who is ruthless and intentional, or the kind who is so good at compartmentalizing that even she does not fully know what she is doing. I am still not sure. I think maybe there is not a clean answer. The weeks that followed were not pretty. I am not going to pretend they were. I moved back into my apartment alone. Daniel having moved his things out while I was at my parents' house. And I sat in the quiet time. I had 2 succulents on the windowsill and a lease that still had 10 months on it and a wedding dress in a garment bag in my closet that I could not figure out what to do with. I went back to our wing because I needed something to do with my hands. My patients were kind. Most of them did not say anything, which was the right call. My friends rallied in the way friends do when something genuinely terrible happens. They brought food. They sat on my couch. They watched bad television and did not ask me to explain how I felt. Rachel came over every Tuesday. Danny drove in from Pittsburgh for a long weekend in October. My mom called every morning at 8:15 just to check in, not to talk, just to hear my voice and let me hear hers. But I want to be honest about something. The hardest part was not losing Daniel. I know that sounds strange. We were engaged. I was supposed to marry him. But somewhere in the shock and the aftermath, I realized that the grief I was feeling was mostly about Brooke. Daniel was someone I loved. Brooke was someone I had built my whole sense of the friendship on. She was 17 years of trust. She was the pearl flickering on who seemed to be standing next to me. The loss of Daniel felt like losing a Fincher. The loss of Brooke felt like losing the ground I was standing on. I had one conversation with Danny about 6 weeks after everything. He called and I picked because I needed to hear him say things out loud. He told me he was sorry. He said it over and over in different ways. He said he had tried to end with Brooke 3 times between January and September, and every time he convinced himself he was being dramatic. That nothing had really happened yet, that he could pull back. He said he was a coward. He said it played things which I respected even if it changed nothing. I asked him if he loved her. He said yes. He said it quietly and like it cost him something to say, which I believed. I told him I hoped he was happy. I meant it about 30%, and I am working on the other 70%. I never spoke to Brooke directly. She tried once. Knocked on my apartment door on a weeknight in November with her curly red hair and her big brown eyes looking smaller than I had ever seen them. I opened the door. I looked at her for maybe 10 seconds. I closed the door. She stood on the other side for a moment, and then I heard her walk away. That was the last time I saw her. My mom said I should write down how I was feeling. She is a therapist, and she says that about most things. But in this case, she was right. So I started writing. First in a journal that I kept by my bed. Then in longer pieces that I sent to nobody and deleted. This is the first time I have sent any of it to anyone outside my immediate circle. It is strange to write it out and realize how coherent it all is, how it follows a logic, even when the logic is terrible. It has been 14 months since my wedding did not happen. I want to tell you where. Naz, I think that is the part that matters most, and it is also the part that is hardest to explain without sounding like a self-help poster. I am okay. That sounds small, but I mean it in the largest possible way. I still live in Columbus. Same apartment, same 2 2 succulents, one of which is struggling. I am still a dental hygienist. I go to the farmer's market on Saturdays. In February, I started seeing a therapist named Duncan. Okafer, who has this way of asking questions that makes you feel like you are figuring things out yourself, even when she is clearly doing most of the work. She is very good at her job, and I tell her that regularly, and she accepts the compliment without deflecting, which I appreciate. In January, 4 months after everything, I met someone. I want to be careful about how I say this, because I do not want it to sound like meeting someone was the thing that fixed me. It was not. I had been doing the work of fixing myself for months before that. But his name is Owen, and he's a middle school science teacher, and he has the most settled energy of any person I have ever been around. He is not exciting in the loud way that Brooke was exciting, or in the high-stakes way that Daniel sometimes was. He is exciting in the way that people are when they are genuinely interested in everything. When they ask questions and actually listen to the answers. I told O wedding on our 3rd date. I laid it out plainly, all of it, on. I told him about Brooke and Daniel and the courthouse and the timeline and the voicemail I never responded to. I watched his face while I talked, and I could see him processing it in real time. Flickering on, the way some people, they hear something so specific and strange that they need a moment before they know what to say. He was quiet when I finished. Then he said, "I am really glad you told me. And I am really sorry that happened to you." He did not tell me I must have missed the signs. He did not ask what I had done to contribute. He just said he was sorry, and he meant it, and that was enough. We have been together for 10 months. It is the most uncomplicated relationship I have ever been in. Which is a sentence I would not have thought I was capable of writing a year ago. I have thought a lot about Brooke. More than I expected to, more than I think she deserves. Though I am trying to let go of the idea of deserving when it comes to my own mental space. I have no contact with her. I have no contact with Daniel. I follow neither of them on anything, and I have asked my mutual friends not to update me unless it is something I absolutely need to know. So far, there has been none I absolutely needed to know. My cousin Danny told me in the spring that Brooke and Daniel had moved to a different city, somewhere in the Pacific Northwest. She said she did not know then that, and I told her I did not need to. I hope they are fine. I named in the most neutral, detached way possible. I hope they are fine the way I hump strangers are fine. They are not my people anymore. People stop being your people when they make the choices they made, and I have had to accept that as a complete and total fact rather than a wound. The wedding dress is gone. I donated it in December to a non-profit that provides formal wear to women who cannot afford it for job interviews and other events. I called ahead to make sure a wedding dress was useful to them. The woman I spoke to said they would find someone who needed it. I dropped it off on a Tuesday afternoon and drove home and felt not happy exactly, but lighter, like I had given the dress as a better story than the one it almost had. My relationship with my mom has gotten closer through all of this. She handled the day itself with a composure I will never stop being grateful for. And in the months since she has been the kind of steady, non-invasive presence that I did not know I needed until I had it. She asks about Owen carefully, like she is aware she is handling something fragile, which I find both annoying and deeply loving. My dad still gets a look on his face sometimes when Daniel's name comes up, a jaw thing, like he is deciding something. He has never said anything specific. He does not need to. The thing I keep come get to, the thing, doctor, okay for, and I circle around regularly, is the question of trust. What do you do with trust after something like this? You built an entire architecture of trust with someone over 17 years, and then they dismantle it piece by piece while you were standing right there. What does that do to your ability to trust the next person? I do not have a perfect answer. I am not sure there is one. But I think what I have learned is that trust is not a single thing you give to a person in total. It is something candle flicker mentally in small specific moments. And it is something the other person has to earn in kind. Owen has been earning it for 10 months. Every time he says he will be somewhere, he is there. Every time he says he is fine, he is fine. Every time I test the weight what is between us, it holds. That is not the whole answer, but it is the beginning of one. My phone is on the table next to me. Owen is in the other room, with the television on low. We are going to the farmer's tomorrow morning, and then to lunch at a place we have been trying to get to for 2 months. It is October, crisp and golden outside. The kind of day Columbus does better than almost anywhere. My life is quiet and ordinary and mine. That is everything. That is the whole story. And I am telling you that is enough.